just 18 years old, Tolu's life was already the kind many only saw in nightmares. He had once lived a normal life, gone to school, helped his mother sell fried yam, and even dreamed of becoming an engineer. But everything changed the day his father died in a car crash and his mother fell sick not long after. The illness consumed everything: their savings, their small shop, even their rented room. When his mother passed, Tolu had no one left. His uncles rejected him. His mother's sisters told him they had their own children to care for. With no home and no family, Tolu ended up on the streets of Lagos, alone, forgotten, and heartbroken. He slept under the bridge at CMS, using a worn-out backpack as a pillow. Every morning, he would wake up before sunrise, clean buses, run errands, and do odd jobs just to get something to eat. He was 18, but he looked older, hardened by pain, his face thin, and his eyes carrying more stories than his age should allow. The sun blazed fiercely over Lagos, casting sharp heat waves that danced above the dusty pavements. It was around 1:15 p.m., and the smell of fried oil, exhaust fumes, and sweat filled the air. Tolu wiped the sweat off his forehead with the edge of his dirty t-shirt. He had just spent 2 hours helping a market woman offload bags of gari from a rickety van. For that, she handed him 200 naira, enough for one meal if he spent carefully. He walked to a nearby roadside vendor, bought a small loaf of bread and 3 pieces of akara, and found his usual spot beneath the CMS bridge, a quiet corner shielded from the scorching sun, where flies and stray dogs competed for scraps. As he sat and opened the brown paper wrap, his stomach grumbled loudly. His hands trembled, not out of fear, but hunger. The bread was dry, the akara cold. But to Tolu, it was a feast. Just as he was about to take the first bite, a shadow appeared over his food. Please, my son." Tolu looked up and froze. Before him stood an old, ragged man, barefoot, his clothes torn and stained beyond recognition. His face was covered in dust, his lips cracked, and his eyes, tired and sunken, told the story of deep suffering. "I haven't eaten in 2 days," the man said, barely able to stand. "Just a piece, anything, please." Tolu's eyes dropped to the food in his hand. He hesitated. This meal, this simple, dry meal, was all he had for the day. He hadn't eaten since the night before, and there was no guarantee he would find another job that day. Giving even a bite meant going to bed with an empty stomach. But then he remembered his mother's words, spoken in softer times. "Tolu, always share, even if it's little. Kindness brings light into dark places." He took a deep breath and nodded. "Sit down, Baba. Let's eat together." The old man's knees gave out as he collapsed beside him. Tolu tore the bread in half and handed it over, followed by 1 piece of akara. The man took it with trembling hands, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. They ate slowly, side by side, without saying much. As cars roared past them, no one paid attention. 2 forgotten souls, sharing silence and struggle. When they finished, the man looked at Tolu and whispered, "You gave me what the rich refused me. You have nothing, yet you gave everything. May the heavens remember you." Tolu just smiled weakly. "God day watch," he replied, trying not to show how hungry he still was. The man stood, adjusted his torn wrapper, and with one last grateful glance, disappeared into the crowd. Tolu sat back and leaned against the cold wall of the bridge, his stomach still growling. But strangely, his heart felt full. Something in that moment, something beyond understanding, made him feel like he'd just passed a test. One he didn't know he was taking. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "I'll be okay. Someday, things will change." 3 days later, Tolu was sitting by the roadside at Marina, hoping to carry loads for someone when a black Lexus Jeep pulled up beside him. A man in a fine suit stepped out, looked directly at him, and said, "Are you Tolu?" Tolu blinked, confused. "Yes, I am. You're needed. Please follow me." Tolu's heart raced. Was it police? Area boys? Trouble? "Why?" he asked nervously. "You'll understand soon. Someone important wants to see you." After some hesitation, Tolu entered the car. They drove past familiar places, then crossed into Lekki Phase 1. Tolu couldn't believe what he was seeing. Mansions, private security, trees trimmed like in the movies. The car stopped at a tall black gate that opened automatically. Tolu was led into a house that looked like a palace. Everything inside sparkled, from the white marble floor to the golden chandelier hanging above. Then, from the stairs, the same man he fed 3 days ago walked in. Only this time, he looked completely different. Fresh haircut, clean white senator, expensive perfume. Tolu gasped. Barber. Tolu stood frozen in the center of the grand living room, his dusty feet sinking slightly into the soft, white rug beneath him. The air smelled of lemon polish, foreign air freshener, and wealth. The ceiling above him stretched so high, he felt like he was in a palace. The chandelier sparkled with diamond-like crystals. Golden-framed paintings hung on the walls, and a soft classical tune played faintly from unseen speakers. Everything around him was so beautiful, yet Tolu felt painfully out of place, like a stain on a white cloth. Then, he heard footsteps. Slow, confident, graceful. From the wide staircase, a man descended, dressed in a flowing white senator suit, clean black loafers, and a designer wristwatch that could buy a plot of land in Lekki. Tolu's breath caught in his throat. It was him. The same old man he had shared bread and akara with just 3 days earlier. But now, he was unrecognizable. Clean-shaven, fresh-faced, eyes full of calm strength. He didn't look like a beggar anymore. He looked like someone whose name opened doors in high places. Tolu's lips trembled. Barber? The man smiled warmly. Yes, my son. It's me. Tolu stepped back, confused. His mind raced. Was this a trick? Was he dreaming? The man walked toward him, and for the first time, Tolu noticed the house staff around. Guards, stewards, and a personal assistant, all standing silently, watching respectfully. I know you're confused, the man said gently, but let me explain. He sat down and gestured for Tolu to sit too, but Tolu remained standing, his hands shaking. My name is Chief Amos, he began, his voice deep and controlled. I own several companies across Nigeria, oil, real estate, tech, and agriculture. I have everything money can buy, but after I recovered from a near-death illness last month, I realized something. He paused. Tolu listened, heart pounding. I realized I had surrounded myself with people who feared me, worshipped me, and pretended to care. But I didn't know who truly saw me as a human being. So I did something radical. I left everything behind, my cars, clothes, guards, and went into the streets dressed like a beggar. He looked into Tolu's eyes. People mocked me. Some insulted me. Others ignored me entirely. I slept outside, was chased by security men, and even robbed. But then, I met you. The silence in the room deepened. Even the classical music had stopped. You didn't know who I was. You had no idea. And yet, you shared your last meal with me. Not because you had plenty, but because you had heart. Tolu's throat tightened. His eyes filled with tears. I didn't do it for anything. I just didn't want you to go hungry. Chief Amos stood and walked closer to him. Exactly. And that's why you're standing here today. He placed a gentle hand on Tolu's shoulder. You passed a test that thousands failed. You gave me the kind of love that money can't buy. And for that, I've decided, your life must change. Tolu couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They streamed down his face silently. You will never sleep under a bridge again, Chief Amos said. From today, this is your home. You will go back to school. You'll receive the best education, mentorship, and care. And when you're ready, I will show you how to build a life of value, not just wealth, but legacy. Tolu dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I don't even know what to say. The chief knelt with him and lifted him gently. Just promise me one thing, he said. Never lose the heart that fed a stranger. Tolu nodded through his tears. I won't, sir. I promise. That evening felt like a dream that Tolu was afraid to wake up from. He stood in front of a large mirror inside a room bigger than the entire makeshift area he once shared under CMS Bridge. The walls were soft cream, the bed, massive and dressed in white cotton sheets, looked untouched, like something out of a magazine. There was a television, a study desk, a mini library, and a closet already filled with clean, well-folded clothes. Tolu gently touched the fabric of the new shirt he was wearing, soft cotton, fresh, warm. He hadn't worn clean clothes in months. Just an hour earlier, a housekeeper had bathed him, given him slippers, and sprayed him with cologne that smelled of citrus and cedar. He stared at himself in the mirror for a long time. His reflection looked like him, but different. Refreshed. Human. Not the dirty street boy Lagos used to ignore. A knock came at the door. "Dinner is ready," a female voice said softly. Tolu followed the housekeeper down the marbled corridor and into a lavish dining room where a feast waited for him. Fried rice, grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, and freshly baked bread. A fruit platter sat in the center of the table like a decoration. Tolu blinked at the sight, unsure if it was meant for him or for a party. "Please, sit and eat," Chief Amos said warmly, joining him. Tolu hesitated, then sat slowly. He picked up a fork like it was a sacred tool and began to eat, cautiously at first, then hungrily. Every bite tasted like freedom. It was the first time he had eaten and felt safe. No fear of someone snatching it. No looking over his shoulder. No barking dogs. Just peace. Midway through the meal, Tolu paused, dropped his fork, and wiped his eyes. "I still feel like I'm dreaming," he said quietly. The chief nodded. "You're not. But I know it'll take time to believe this is your new life." A week later, Tolu was enrolled in a top private polytechnic in Lekki. He was given a full scholarship, uniforms, books, transport, allowance, everything. The school was nothing like the public schools he had once attended. There were air-conditioned classrooms, computers, smart boards, and students who wore designer shoes and spoke with confidence. Tolu felt intimidated at first. He sat at the back of the class, rarely raised his hand, and always kept his head down. But Chief Amos didn't just rescue him, he raised him. Every evening after school, Tolu would sit with him in the study room where he was taught things no school could teach: wisdom, dignity, discipline, and the meaning of true wealth. "You see, Tolu," the chief once said, "wealth isn't just about money. It's about how many lives you touch. You were poor in material things, but rich in heart. Now, we're just helping the outside match the inside." Slowly, Tolu began to rise. He started to ask questions in class. He read books. He helped other students with notes. He no longer just survived. He began to grow. Months turned to years. Tolu graduated top of his class and interned with one of Chief Amos's tech companies. His ideas were sharp, his passion unmatched. Board members began to take notice. He became a symbol, proof that greatness can come from anywhere, even from under a bridge. Yet despite his new world, Tolu never forgot the old one. He would drive through Marina some evenings, passing the same corner where he once begged for jobs and dodged rainstorms. Sometimes he would park and just sit there, watching the crowd, silently praying for every boy who still lived that life. He knew what they felt. He had been them. One night, as he stood on the balcony of his new apartment inside the chief's estate, he looked up at the stars and whispered, "Mummy, I hope you can see me. Your boy is not lost anymore." And deep in his heart, he felt her warmth. 6 years had passed. 6 long, beautiful, life-altering years. Tolu was now 24 years old, a man transformed. No longer the ragged teenager who once begged for jobs and slept under the CMS bridge. He now walked with quiet confidence, dressed in tailored suits, and spoke with the wisdom of someone who had survived fire and come out gold. He had earned diplomas in engineering and business, and more importantly, earned respect, real respect, not just because he was mentored by Chief Amos, but because he had proven himself. He was now managing one of the chief's major tech subsidiaries, leading with intelligence, humility, and compassion. But Tolu knew something was missing. He hadn't forgotten the boys still sleeping under the bridge, the girls trading their bodies for bread, the barefoot children who stared into restaurant windows with empty stomachs. He hadn't forgotten where he came from. And so, with Chief Amos's blessing and financial backing, Tolu launched something dear to his soul. The Tolu Care Foundation. Its mission was simple, but powerful. To give street children the life he once prayed for. The grand launch took place at the Eco Convention Center. Dignitaries, business moguls, celebrities, and government officials attended. Journalists flocked to the red carpet. Banners with Tolu's face hung proudly beside the foundation's logo, a pair of hands lifting a child from the ground. The hall buzzed with anticipation as the lights dimmed and a spotlight hit the stage. Then, he walked in. Tolu. Dressed in a royal blue agbada, humble but regal, he stepped to the podium with a quiet smile. The crowd hushed. He took a deep breath and began. 6 years ago, I was barefoot, hungry, and forgotten. I slept under CMS Bridge and shared dry bread with mosquitoes. I gave a hungry man my last piece of akara, not knowing he was a billionaire in disguise. That man changed my life. He paused, looked around the room, and continued. But it wasn't the money that changed me. It was the opportunity. The chance to become more than what life had offered me. That's what the Tolu Care Foundation is about. Giving every forgotten child a second chance. The hall erupted into applause. People rose to their feet, moved by the raw sincerity in his voice. After the speech, Chief Amos himself walked to the stage, embraced Tolu, and handed him the ceremonial key to the foundation's first building. A massive shelter and skills center in Surulere, Lagos. 3 months later, the shelter opened. It had dormitories, classrooms, a small clinic, a tech lab, and a vocational studio. Children filled the compound, laughing, eating, learning. Every wall was painted with color. Every room whispered hope. Tolu visited often. He didn't come in convoys. He came quietly, sat with the kids, played football with them, helped them with homework. Many didn't know he was the founder. They just called him Uncle Tolu. One afternoon, a small boy tugged at his shirt and asked, "Uncle, were you ever on the streets too?" Tolu smiled gently. "Yes, I was just like you." The boy looked surprised. "But, you're rich now." Tolu nodded. Rich in heart first, then everything else followed. Meanwhile, news of his story spread. Interviews, documentaries, school talks, awards. But through it all, Tolu remained grounded. Each time someone praised him, he would simply say, "I didn't get here alone. A man saw my pain and answered. Now, it's my turn to answer the pain of others." And the world listened. One evening, Tolu returned to CMS Bridge. This time in a white Range Rover. He stepped out quietly and walked to the same corner he used to sleep. A group of teenage boys sat there, sharing puff-puff. He sat with them. "Who be you?" one asked, suspicious. Tolu smiled. "I used to sleep here too." He gave each of them 5,000 naira and told them never to give up. Be kind, be strong, and believe that your story can change. As he stood up to leave, one of the boys called out, "What's your name, sir?" He turned and smiled. "Tolu. Just Tolu." Moral lesson. Kindness is a seed. You never know who you're helping. You might be feeding a billionaire. You might be planting a future. Never let your circumstances stop you from doing good. Like Tolu, your breakthrough may come from one simple act of selfless love.